God of War 3 was released in 2010, and honestly, since then, I don't believe that games have really changed that much. Looking at the generation before it, from the PS2 to the PS3, there was a huge leap in terms of quality of content and the way that games played out and what the systems could handle. Since then, I think the changes have sort of been superficial. Many of the games that were released on the PS4 within the last 2 or 3 years, I believe, could have been released on the PS3, and there isn't that much difference except from on a graphical level. So I thought I'd go back to this, what many consider a classic, God of War 3, and see if it still holds up today, and if it is as good as many people said that it was back then. So starting off the story, I noticed when playing through, this is very thin, and it becomes over convoluted with the Pandora storyline. Eventually, the way she ties into this plot seems a bit pointless, and by the end, it's sort of for nothing. There's going to be huge spoilers in this review, so I recommend that if you want to play the game fresh, then where the hell have you been for the last 8 years or so? But turn this off. But hit subscribe. So it's revealed in the box that there was nothing. So the entire game that you've been playing through in order to get this box, it's been a complete waste of time, really. Which it's quite sour. And you go into a massive forced walking section as well at the end of the game, which seems really counterintuitive, especially when God of War 2, the ending of that, the last 90 minutes of it just kept ramping up, and there was fight after fight, and you were constantly on the edge of your seat with it. Whereas this, it's quite downtrodden, and it's strange how games have sort of become a lot like that. Like Arkham Knight is very downtrodden towards the end. The Last of Us is. A lot of games now sort of prefer to end their game on an anticlimax in a story section rather than a boss fight. So it's quite interesting to go back and see where it sort of began in this game. It's not very well executed here though, so I didn't particularly enjoy it. And the cliche ending of the hero kills himself, and then after credits you see the body's not really there. That's sort of but obviously that had to be done to play into what's going to be coming out next year, hopefully, God of War 4. I found with the game itself, if you level up properly very early on, then most of the fights become an absolute doddle, even on hard. I never understood in God of War Ascension, there was a section where I remember people complained that the difficulty spike was so massive, and it was like, oh no one can ever pass this, and they actually had to release a patch to correct the difficulty on that and make it slightly easier. I'm a bit of a worrier, so when I hear games are difficult, I think, oh, can I even get through this? Can I be bothered? Anyway, I got to that section in God of War Ascension, got through it first time, didn't even realise, hadn't had the patch, and I was like, whoa, was that what everyone's talking about? They're a bit of mugs, them. So yeah, it's weird how games have sort of released patches now where they sort of cater to their audience, whereas back in the day of like the Super Nintendo and stuff, you got a game that was hard, and if you didn't complete it, they were like, yeah, sorry you mate, you're not completing it. Whereas now, I think a lot of artists, they put so much time into these later sections in the game, they really want you to level up. There's absolutely brilliant boss fights, like the Kronos one here. This is outstanding even today. It definitely stands out as the highlight in the entire God of War series. The fact that there's such a significant feeling of scale, like you go to where you're basically on this massive level that's a moving creature, and the camera zooms in, like you can see at this moment you're fully pulled out, you're seeing the full scope of the character, and then you zoom right into like the tiniest section on him and come flying out, and you're just basically an ant on him, and it's still so impressive today, and I really do not know how they managed to pull this off. And I kind of wish more games had sections like these, because it is really thrilling to fight a massive boss. It's very superficial, but it's just the feeling of power that you get from kicking the crap out of someone who's a million times your size. There's great puzzles in this. But you know, there's a lot of parts that take place in the dark where you've got to walk around dark corridors and you can't really see what you're going, and you have to stop, light stuff, fight, stop, light stuff, fight, and it just slows the pace a bit, and the combat because of it really suffers. So I didn't really like those sections, and I think they've aged very poorly. A lot of the combos in this game as well are just square, square, triangle. If you just keep hitting square, square, triangle, you'll get through every fight. And it's a shame that the fixed cameras sort of don't allow you to see a lot of the things that you're fighting. A lot of the times you'll be hitting things off screen and just kind of guessing where they are. And because of that, the combat doesn't feel as defined as it should do. A lot of people, including myself, used to praise God of War for how good the combat was. It really influenced a lot of games. But then the Arkham combat came out, and that was sort of the step above, and it's sort of the industry standard at the moment. And going back to this, it feels a bit strange, and because of it, it's quite difficult to get into the fighting as I once had been into it. And obviously this is a game made up of fighting. You pretty much get ushered from kill room to kill room. There's a bit where you're flying through a level and then you land in a kill room and you have to fight these like monsters, and honestly, if you'd landed like 5 foot in front, you wouldn't have had to fight them and you would have just went on to the next objective. So it really feels like they're just padding out the game, especially towards the end. There's so many mind-numbing fights and it just becomes a slog, especially when you don't know what you're hitting most of the time, and it's just wave after wave of villain that you've fought throughout, and you just really want to progress with the story. Last night I knew I was coming towards the end of the game, so I thought, oh, I've been on 2 hours, I'll just stay for another 15 minutes because I think that's all the game has. Anyway, I was there another 2 hours because it was just, there was so much just padding of fighting boss after crappy little boss after boss, and it just got mind numbing after a while, and it really takes the enjoyment out of the game for you, and because of that it actually sours the ending. It just, yeah, there's certain things in it that you know really don't hold up, and it's really unfortunate. There's lots of backtracking. You go up and down that mountain several times. You're like bloody Brian Blessed going up and down that mountain. Are you having that brilliant joke? And there's weird bits in the plot, like Pandora. There's a bit where she really panics and she's like, "Oh my God, Zeus is coming!" And you can hear this. She's going, "Oh my God, Zeus is coming! Please, no, come rescue me, Kratos!" And you get there and she's fine. And they do that several times, and it's just to make the feel a sense of urgency. But there's no point in doing it. And you've got terrible moments like this where the graphics really take a dip on the PS4. And I don't know why it looks so badly textured, because it looked okay on the PS3. So yeah, there's just a couple of janky bits that really haven't held up. Overall though, do I feel like this is worth playing if you want to, if you never have and you've gotten to and you want to get into God of War 4. Try and pick up the remasters of God of War 1 and 2, because 2 is one of my favourite games of all time, and it really is, I still think it holds up. And that'll give you a really good demonstration of whether you want to get into this world. But for everyone who wants to play God of War 3, I don't massively recommend going back to it, and that's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. So what do you think of the game? Comment below, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Take care.